The Global Latin Factor Podcast.
Welcome you and all to another episode of the Global Latin Factor Podcast, where we talk about Latino everything. I'm your host, Crispin Valentin, and today we have a very special individual coming to visit the podcast. He is the Prime Minister of the Brown Berets Dallas chapter, speaker, activist. We have Mr. Tony Littleman Rodriguez. Hola.
Hola.
¿Qué tal?
Muy bien. ¿Cómo estás?
Muy bien. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. So did I get everything as far as what you do? A prime minister,
yes.
Speaker, and activist, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If you have any more titles, please let me know.
All right.
All right. So we're going to go ahead and start before we get going with Preguntas al Chile.
All
right. So if you are just listening to the audio, you want to check out the YouTube, go subscribe so you can see the beautiful graphics we got that Carlos prepared. They probably took him like 10 hours to do. They're amazing. Okay, here we go. Tacos or tortas?
Tacos.
Okay. Go corn tortilla or flour tortillas?
Corn.
Gorditas or flautas?
Flautas.
We have Mexican coca or jarrito?
Jarrito.
What flavor?
Tamarindo.
Tamarindo.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Agua de horchata, Jamaica or tamarindo?
Oh, man, it's got to be horchata.
Horchata.
Yeah.
Salsa verde, salsa roja?
Roja.
Okay. And menudo or pozole?
Menudo.
Churros or flan?
Flan.
Do you drink? You like to have a drink here, there?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you like beer?
Yes.
Okay. Corona, Dos Equis, or Carta Blanca?
Dos X.
Good choice.
Yeah.
Tequila or mezcal?
Tequila.
Nice. Salsas, the hot sauce, Valentina, Tapatio, Cholula?
Y Valentina.
Yeah. Okay. And the paletitas, the candy ones, the sandía, elote or mango?
Elote.
Yeah. Okay. And the conchitas, the brown ones, the pink ones, or the white ones?
Oh, that's a hard one. The brown ones.
Mm-hmm. And what about refried beans? Charro or refried? Which ones do you like?
Refried.
Okay.
Original.
All right. And just in general, we're going to talk more about the Brown Berets and everything. But to you, the term Latino, what does it mean? Is it in, like, as far as even the definition, the meaning? What does it come to mind whenever you hear Latino?
I think someone Latino for me is, someone Spanish speaking, Latin America, including the islands and stuff, but mainly brown, so I guess colonized people.
That's true.
So yeah, I think that's for me, it's a Latino and someone that identifies with the whole culture. So not just a Mexican, but you identify with Puerto Riqueños, Dominican. So you kind of see it all, maybe connections everywhere.
Yeah. Because even though we might be different at certain things that we do as far as culturally, because Latinos have their own culture individually, right? But we all share few things like the language, being colonized, like things like that. Some of the similar ingredients in food.
Yes.
Not exactly the same dishes, but some are similar as far as the ingredients.
Yes.
Like beans and rice and a lot of things like that.
The staples.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so I asked you about 3 questions that you want to talk about. And first of all, let's not forget the uniform that you have on. So you are a Brown Beret.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about history of what the Brown Berets are and what they've done.
Well, the Brown Berets, they've been around since the 60s. About 66, I think is when it started. And it was a student movement. So it was a student movement, really social justice, but the main focus for them was school.
Right.
So for me, it was back in the civil rights. So it was a lot of turmoil, so there was the Black Panthers and all that. And the Brown Berets is what rose out of the East LA and then Texas to, our barrios. So that was kind of our response at that time. I think what we've done is that's a big movement. The Chicano movement was a huge deal. Okay. It just hasn't been spoken of. And I think what we've done, man, it's not ever really counted on, that so many professors that we have now that weren't possible back in those days, and those, to put it in perspective, back in that, when they started the Brown Berets,
right,
we had a 2% graduation rate.
That's high school.
That's high school graduation. So it was very extremely low. We performed the lowest of any minority group in this country.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of problems they were trying to, I think that's what brought them out. But at that time, it was a lot of social movements in general. You had the Cesar Chavez with the farm workers.
Yep.
You like I say, you had the
Dolores Huerta.
Obviously, yes. And,
You got the
Black Panthers. And then, you had the New Era Young Lords, which a lot of people,
those are the
Puerto Rican. Yes. So it was a lot of social awakening at that moment because, it was a lot of same conditions. So that brought them out. So I think the Brown Berets, I think that's what they came out of. It was a time. That time brought them, I guess. It was in that moment, they started off as students, as a student group, just demanding better schooling, more funding, more college courses. They weren't even offered that back then.
Okay, so let's touch up on that a little bit, because in the 1960s, whether you want or not, you can look back and check in history. First of all, what will be your definition as far as a Chicano? What would be Chicano would be to you as a definition, or how would you define it? Or how would you describe a Chicano?
To me, a Chicano is somebody that chose his own identity, I would say. That's where it came out of. A lot of we didn't have an identity back then. We weren't Mexican because we were raised here. We weren't American. So it was a choosing of an identity to be proud of.
Right.
That's the main thing I think that the Chicano term and the Chicano name was meant to do, was to instill pride in us. That, hey, we come from, a long lineage. Our people used to build temples, and, we were smart, and we've always been smart. We're capable of a lot more. So I think that's what it was, and it was used as a negative sometimes, and sometimes it still is, but it's always the struggle back then is the same as now. It was just to instill pride in us because we didn't have any. Nobody gave that to us. We went to school, we got mistreated. You couldn't speak Spanish in school back then.
Yeah, back in the 1960s, whether you wanted it or not, you would get in trouble. You would get spanking, like licks with a paddle if you got caught speaking Spanish.
Yes, so I think that was like the response, I guess, of people that wanted respect and felt pride in being brown. That was brown and proud, Chicano, people marching and feeling proud, and, calling, neighborhoods I used to fight back then, getting together and seeing the similarities. And it was a beautiful time.
It was statistically, as far as my understanding, it is known that anytime the Brown Berets have a presence, that the gang violence or the gang activity does go down significantly. And I think that's something that is part of the positive things that happen, because I know there's online, you can look it up. There's both positive and negative for the Brown Berets as far as their history and when they began. And as far as I know, you're right, correct. It started from students. That now, as older individuals, are doctors, professors, and they have good careers. Now, I want to touch up on that part as far as the identity part, because I'm Mexican. I was born in Mexico, so I got here in the 90s. And that term Chicano is the first time that I started getting used to or hearing the term from my parents, because my parents or people around me, because I knew. And then a lot of the times it wasn't the best thing to use to be a Chicano, right? Like, he's just a Chicano. He's a marihuano. He does he's lazy or whatever the case might be. You know what I mean? Then so you have that side of the Mexicanos that literally some of those are your kids seeing you in that way. And then you have the Americans here in the States that they don't even want you for the same reason that you just look like your parents. You know what I mean? So I can see there will be a conflict as to which way do we go. Like, our Mexican people don't want to accept us because we are, even though we're just like we came from them, but at the same time, the U.S. or the government, whoever it was, they don't want to. They don't want you either because you just look like them, and to them,
you're just a Mexican.
You're no different than they are.
Exactly.
So I can see why you would be like, which way do we go? okay, you know what? Y'all don't want us. We don't want us. That Selena bus scene with the dad
Yes.
talking about you got to be more Mexican than Mexican American. He was A1 on that for the same reason as to why you want to find something that you can relate. And you know what? Y'all don't want us. Y'all don't want me. We're not Mexican Americans. With this, we're Chicanos. And I think it's a beautiful thing because I grew up with the perception it was again at that time.
Yeah.
I grew up out of it, but I can see why y'all will be necessary to find some kind of identity that you can identify as you and be proud of, instead of because from both directions you're not being embraced or seen. You know what I mean?
And it's so important. I mean, I think what we had for so many generations is all right. The Chicano thing was when they put that together, they found the simplest thing that we could be proud of that no one can take away. And that's where like Chicano comes from Mexica.
Mexica.
Yeah, which is the Aztecs.
Yeah,
you know?
Mexican.
Yeah, so it was our claim to the land. Because when we were over here, you know, the Americans, the white Americans, they would call us outsiders, foreigners, immigrants, right? So we didn't belong anywhere. So by adopting that identity, it's like we made a home for ourselves because this is home. You know, a lot of our people came from up here. You know, the Southwest and Mexico are very connected.
They were already here. They never crossed the border. The
border crossed us. Them. Yes. Yeah. So, you know, I think that's where it came from. You know, and to be proud of yourself. I mean, it's something that it gets overlooked so much. Yeah. But even with the education, a lot of time, if you ask people why didn't you go to college, they feel like they didn't belong. It wasn't for them. And I think that feeling right there is what the Chicano movement really was fighting in the beginning, is to get over that. To even now, I tell people, you're not a minority. You're not a minority, man. Don't think like that. You know, you're a majority. You have power in your hands. And, you know, I think that's the message that they were trying to say then, but it's more powerful now because there's so many of us. Yeah. You know?
And I don't blame like the Chicanos, because let's say our parents saw them as being lazy. Like, if you see your parents working their butt off all the time and they're not really progressing and they're not really getting acknowledged and they're not really moving forward, then you're tired of it. Why do you want to work some? I was born in Mexico. Yeah. But honestly, physical work is just something that I just not a big doer of. I like to do things like that. And not to say office work, not to say I can't do that work. But to me, I feel like my parents work so hard to me that it's not of service. One of the scenes we'll talk about it more, but the walkout, the movie. Yes. One of the scenes was the little girl told her dad, like, why you like that? Because I don't want to be like you. But I think she could have said, I don't want to be like you. I want to be and be more than you for the same reason that you work so hard that I want to take it to the next level, you know? Yes. And I think that was a powerful scene, and it touched on me because the dad doing the movie was kind of putting her down, like, you're not going to go this, you're not going to go there.
Well, you know, I think a lot of us, you know, that we come from, you know, maybe from Mexico or like our parents were immigrants, you know, so like me, English was my second language, right? So I learned Spanish first and all that. So I think we get from a young age, we get told, just go to work. And that's it, right? And so we don't place value on work like this. And I think that is something that it was something they were trying to break away. Back then, high school, you didn't have college. Yeah. If you're Mexican, you got trade schools.
But that's another thing, too. In the movie, they showed that the counselors wouldn't even try to tell them to go to school. Yes. They would tell, like, you'll make a great mechanic, like trade school. Yes. Or you'll be great at this, but maybe maybe you can go to school. Yeah. That's not okay.
And you know what? A lot of the conditions the negative conditions that we have in the neighborhood now come from that exact feeling that kids, they don't feel hope. I mean, you look around and all you see is, you don't see doctors, you don't see lawyers or anything like that. You just see maybe some drug dealers or, you know, gang members over here, you know, which they're just lost themselves, you know. So it's people that have given up hope. And a lot of our people are living in conditions that create that. You know, I was watching this video where this guy, you know, it was a documentary from back then, and he's like, he says, you know, this facility has 80% Mexican Americans. You know, he said, we're tired of living in these conditions. We'd rather die. And that is exactly what a lot of our people out there are suicidal, man. They're out there riding around. They don't care about their lives. Why?
Yeah.
Because they don't see a future.
Yeah.
And I think like that's a big message that needs to be put out there. It was important then, and it's important now still for us to have a future, for them to
Right.
tell you, hey, we have to honor the hard work of our parents.
Right.
But at the same time, generational growth needs to happen.
Absolutely.
We need to, the foundation they built for us, we need to build on top of it. So that's like something I do youth nights. And that's something I try to tell them, like, we're supposed to build on top of their foundation, not stick to the same foundation.
Yeah. Are the parents present during this youth night?
Yes, a lot of times.
I think, based on my experience, right, and things that I dealt with for me, is that I needed to have encouragement more. It didn't stop me from doing the things that I am going to continue to do. But it feels so good, especially being younger, to hear that and be able to be pushed forward. And I think the parents need to hear that, because even though I go back in reference to that movie, because I just watched The Walkout, and it was freaking super emotional. If you never watched The Walkout from the 1968 walkouts in East LA, 1968 or 69, the walkouts from East LA for the schools, because they wanted to have change. They didn't have restrooms. The restrooms were locked. They couldn't use them. Mm-hmm. Again, they were not even encouraged to go to college. Yep. They were spanked or licked for speaking Spanish.
Yes.
So everything that you can think of that they were not able to do, and they got sick of it, and they decided to organize at the same time with the Brown Berets and walk out as protests, all the schools at the same time to make a stand that we needed to. And they did it a few times. One of the times they did it, a lot of the kids, even though they didn't put it out in the news, they were beat up.
Yes.
High school kids were beat up by cops. They were beat with them, the batons. They beat the crap out of them. They arrested a lot of them, and a lot of them were put in the hospital.
Yes.
And that is a real event that happened.
Yes.
You can't take that away from the fact that it was. But I was really feeling the girl, her story, whoever, I don't remember the actual person. But the dad was so in his mind that he just going to work and this, and then he didn't want to push her anymore.
Yeah.
Eventually started seeing a little bit different. But at the same time, I think that was very important, and we need to still work within the house to try to push them, because you're right. You work so much that you have to honor their work, but by projecting yourself even higher than what they were able to do for you.
And I think sometimes these, like when we do the youth night, the parents there, I could see that they themselves are like, they don't realize sometimes we do things without realizing.
Right.
So they're giving advice that was given to them and that was given to them. And that's the generational curse we're trying to break, is that I want these kids to know, man, like, and I do believe it, that they can be whatever they want. I know we're smart.
Yep.
And I believe we're really tough people because of the conditions, some of us that had to go, take you for instance, or me, if I didn't get encouraged, but I still fought through and I made it. I feel like lucky because I didn't make good choices in my life, but I'm here being able to talk, right? So I'm very lucky, blessed to be that way. I know a lot of people did it.
Tell me a little bit, touch up on that part. Like, what was your story as far as how you've been and how you got to be a Brown Beret? Where did that come from, or what was some of the mistakes?
All right,
you had
well,
to go through?
that's a good one. For me, it was when I was in prison, and I started seeing so many of me around. So many of us there, and I just got curious.
Right.
So I wanted to know, well, what's a gang? I was in a gang. Where did it start? Why did they start? Do
you mind me asking the reason why it put you in that situation that you ended up in jail or in prison?
Oh, what, like the instance?
Yeah.
It was gang violence.
It was gang violence.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It was brown on brown gang violence.
Okay.
So very sad about that.
Not the proudest moment, but right, we grew out of it, right?
Yeah.
So you can admit that that's what happened, and that's what put you in that position, right?
I think that's what helps me talk about this, is that I seen the hate. I felt the hate that was put in me, that I felt towards other people that looked just like me. And I wanted to know why. And that all the research led to the Brown Berets and the Chicano movement and things like that. And, when I talk to kids, man, I think of myself. I just say things that I wanted to hear or I wish I could have heard.
Absolutely.
Because, I do feel now it's like, I get to talk and, I read and I study and I know that I like it. And I wish I'd have applied that in a different way. So
where did the light bulb click as far as whenever you were processing the stuff and realizing that you wanted to hate them, but they were just like you. And then you just like, I can't do this no more. It's not me.
You know what? When I started, it wasn't that. It's when I seen a bigger enemy, to be honest. That's when I felt like angry, felt set up. Because when you start studying and you start seeing the numbers, and then you realize it's not a coincidence that so many of us go to prison. I had to ask myself a very honest question.
Right.
Are my people just violent, incapable of growth? Because that's what they told me.
Right.
That's what how we were looked at and what we were told since we were kids. And, that I either had to accept that or there was something else going on.
Right.
And with studying and research and knowing your history, you notice that it's something else going on. We have instances. I tell people I don't make nothing up. It's history. I just tell you the history and you make your conclusions. And you'll see the pattern of abuse that we've had over the years that has, destroyed our potential as people. And that's really what this, a Brown Beret is really what he's about, is about his whole people. And he's talking about the whole community. Like we want big numbers, right? Like we don't want the Latino doctor, Chicano doctor to be a story that needs to be told because it's so common. Until we reach that point, we haven't made it. Because the reason we celebrate people that are successful in our community, because we understand how hard it is. And kids shouldn't have to struggle so much to get ahead.
Right.
So I think that's what we're trying to even up the playing field to where we have the same opportunities that they do. And that includes positive feedback, telling them, hey, man, you can do it. Like my main thing is telling them, I want them to know that they're powerful.
Right.
The power is in your hands, it's your choices that you're making, and it's very, you get told all the time, hey, if you do this negative thing will happen. I flip that on them, be like, hey, it's the same thing as telling you. They're just telling you have the power in your hand. So don't do that. Do this because something good will happen.
Yeah.
And
if you think you can, if you think you can't, either way, you're right.
Yes.
Now, what was the common enemy that you feel we had that make you want to shift in that direction to make you want to, see change and pretty much what I see you empowering kids, empowering people, and really see where they come from as far as the intelligence, the things we've done in history that we continue to contribute. What was the common factor?
It's just, I don't want to sound a conspiracy person, but it's a systemic thing.
It's establishment, right?
It's an establishment thing. If you look at the rights that people have now, and it's hard to even argue with someone that's patriotic, and I have to tell them, do you know that a lot of the rights you have now only came through civil strife, through protest and marching and fights? The reason we're able to go to school at the numbers that we are now was because we had a fight. Everything we've ever had in this country came out of a fight. So I try to remind people that the system didn't want to give us things. We had to fight it for it. We had to wrestle it out of their hands. And I think it's still relevant now. I think it's still the same. And actually, I think we're in a more dangerous situation because we're actually a threat now because we are a majority.
Yep.
We have power in voting and, everywhere.
I think you posted something not that long ago about the students of going to school or something like that.
Yes.
Graduating.
Yes.
I think it was something like that. And it took me back to one of my brother-in-law was graduating from school. And whenever we were in the ceremony and all the last names passing by, Martinez, Hernandez, Camachos, Chaparros, and all this. And here and there, you hear a different last name and we'll be like,
yeah,
it was no lie, no exaggeration. It was over 80% or 90% almost of Latinos that were graduating from a somewhat known university here in Dallas area.
Well, I mean, and that's something I wanted to bring up. 'Cause a lot of times, Brown Berets, we consider ourselves, the vanguard of the community, right? So we're always watchful. We, paying attention to what the politicians are doing, and if it can hurt us, they're helping us. So we're always watching, and you get maybe used to just looking at negative stuff,
right? So
you could lose the whole picture.
Yeah,
and that's something that I wanted to say is that it's not all bad. Right now, in Texas, undergraduates, 41% are Latinos, Hispanic. Yes,
or
41
Chicanos,
or Chicanos. Yeah. 41%. That's huge. It came after 2020, a lot of that spike. So we've been building up. So I think over these generations, these 50 years since the Chicano movement started, we've been building up, and I just like to remind people that the fight's not over, that we're not where we need to be. Like we're better, but we're not there. Yeah. And I think some people want to think that they're there and celebrate when it's not time yet. I think we still have a lot to watch for and be careful and, improve in our communities.
So all these activists have been putting in work since the 1960s or even before. You need to be grateful for what they're contributing, because you might just take it for granted now that we're graduating at a larger pace, but that doesn't determine who is going to control everything, because it's the people in power, and eventually we have the numbers in schooling and things like that, and we're becoming better.
Yes.
But we need to be put in that place where we can
Absolutely.
Be the ones that make the decisions. Sammy said it earlier, of another lady that said, if you don't have a seat on the table, then you're the meal or something like that. And it's true.
It's very true.
So back in the 1960s to the work they're done, I can see that there has been improvement. You're right. It's not time to celebrate, but at the same time, there's fruit of this labor that's been happening, right?
Yes, and I think that's important to remember, because, if you're looking, and there's some activists back then that felt like they didn't accomplish nothing, and I would like to tell them that that's not true, that I'm here still with the same message, and there's a lot of doctors and teachers and professors that came out if it wouldn't have been for that.
Right.
Those numbers matter. Like in Texas, right here in Dallas, we had the first Latina wasn't elected till 53 years ago, right? So it could seem like a long time, but if you look at it, if you were a child and you were born 50 years ago, you only saw one person in political power. So you grew up not seeing much of it.
Yeah.
But it's growing as we've gone. Now there's judges and, lawyers,
firms, doctors,
we are everywhere. So what we're trying to do is we don't want to be few. If we're 50% of the population, we want that to be reflected everywhere and anywhere.
And we talking about it in leadership positions within the government that can represent and can see and then can relate to your culture as far as what they have to go through.
Yes.
Because some of them do come from nothing and build all the way up. So we need to be able to reflect those with the numbers and not stop. Now, let's talk a little bit about the negative things that I've seen online about the Brown Berets. First of all, in the beginning, there's the East LA 13, which were arrested and later on released.
Sal Castro and
all them for the same reason that they weren't able to find anything they actually did.
Yes.
And then later on, they were still fighting things like that, because they still continue to be active and demonstrate different things. It's just depending on, like, whether it's here in the States, marching with the Black Lives Matter or whoever it is, to even go into other countries and things like that. So if I'm not mistaken, or they were attempting to put you out as a terrorist group, correct?
Yeah. Yes, it's something that, it's been tried, and it's still something that, as an organization, we have to watch for, because, we could be turned or viewed that way. Sometimes we are critics, so sometimes a critic is looked like as an enemy, but that's not the case at all. We just want improved things. So, but yeah, it's something that's happened. The same thing that's happened with the Chicano identity, that a lot of people associate that with just cholos. Now, cholo is a Chicano because he's part of our people.
Yeah.
But so is the doctor. So is a lawyer. We have a lot of professional Chicanos. And as a matter of fact, the Chicano movement is full of professionals.
Right. Absolutely.
Intellectuals. And it's just they don't get showcased like that.
Authors.
Yes.
Professors.
But it's the same thing with the Mexican image. Mexicans don't get portrayed like that as much.
Lazy, mariachi, taco eater.
Or we're just in the cartels,
Things like
so, it's stereotypes that we have to fight now, but that we've always had to fight. Yeah. So it's an empowering movement, and it's young. 53 years is not that much because we've had to deal with a lot of negative, why was the Brown Berets, the Brown Berets didn't just disintegrate themselves.
No,
they were infiltrated.
Infiltrated.
Yeah, so there was efforts to destroy us and to sow the gang culture in our communities, the violence.
You know what I saw that it clicked on my head? And I think the originals would know that this what happened, is that at that time, there were students. First of all, let's start when they started. There were 15, 16, 17-year-old kids, and then some of them were even in college, barely. When they began to move around like this, you know what I mean? And then when they started moving in the direction of putting people in power, that's when somebody didn't like that.
Yeah.
And that's when they started coming with more pressure, having police vehicles outside their door all the time.
Yes.
Breaking up the Piranha Coffee House for the same reason that they didn't want them to be.
Yes.
Try to put them in that label of a terrorist organization for the same reason that why? Because they were making steps to put people in power. They did successfully put a few individuals.
Yes, we did.
In political positions, but all of a sudden
it wasn't
something they liked anymore.
And that's a pattern. If you look at just the U.S. history after the Civil War in the South, there was a lot of black representation in Congress. I mean, a lot. And then the Jim Crow started, and now that KKK. And within like 10 years, there was like 1 or 0. So these efforts that are, that they do, they work. That's why, like right now, I try to tell people, we have to be watchful. Right now, we have 52% of the children in public schools in Texas is us. Latinos, Hispanic, Chicanos. We have to this is the generation to feed. Yeah. If we can feed this generation, then we're going to really be doing some, within a generation, within 25 years, you imagine the population after 52%. That is what we need I think that right now is our main focus for us as all Latinos, just to improve all our conditions, to improve that generation that is in school right now, to teach them, hey, to have another Chicano movement, start again, something like that.
And for anybody that'll be like, just a wild thing, right? Like, okay, so you're just trying to put everybody, Latinos in power, and what about the rest of us, right? What about that? It's not necessarily that, right? It's just one equality among opportunity to grow more, and I think all the things that everybody has, right?
Yes, absolutely. Back then it was a Mexican American thing because we were a bigger, the minority of brown people. That's what was here. But those rights that were fought, it helps everybody. It helps all people in minority. It's just to not be discriminated. It's really to fight white supremacy. And that affects us all. I mean, in the history of this country, and I'm not making this up, it's been bad against Chinese, Japanese, black, us.
Yeah, they put them in concentration camps.
The Native Americans, that's something we don't talk about.
Oh, they destroyed
they're gone.
We have
4%, I think, people that are in Dallas or something like that. Very low number when it was their land. So it was horrible what happened. Yeah. So it's a pattern that's been repeated. I honestly believe that if I can't have, wish peace on you, then I can't have peace either. So this is what this is about. It's the equality thing, for all of us. So yeah, we're just, I think we support, we march with BLM because, the crossroads, the similarities, the poverty, the gangs, the drugs.
And then the Black Panthers way back in the days, if I'm not mistaken, there's a bit of an inspiration as far as taking the look as far as the beret, as far as what the Black Panthers looked and how they were moving and how they were moving. And actually the Brown Berets march, they were invited by Martin Luther King to go march or be part of the movement as well. So also bringing awareness to the brothers that that's also part of the things that we have similar patterns.
Yes, and I think that's good to remember. You know, they'll divide us, and that's really a very true thing that happens, that they'll divide people against people.
Right.
Like for me, I try not to do the left or the right. You know, I don't try to get into that. I just want to empower people, just to let them know, hey, you have power, and then to teach them history.
Right.
And I think that'll just open eyes. You know, I think this telling people the truth. You know, a lot of people just don't know this stuff. They don't know the numbers. They don't know the history. It doesn't get taught in school. So you wouldn't know that stuff. You know, you wouldn't know that so many people had to fight for you to just be able to go to school the way you can.
Yeah.
You know, for them to make openings for, you know, more Mexican or black, to make it inviting. You know, for them to have professors and teachers there that look like them, all that, you know, it all matters.
Yeah. John Leguizamo has History for Morons or something like that.
Yeah, I see
that special.
Yeah.
And he touches up on certain things that you will never find on history books ever. But those are real numbers from Vietnam. That's another part of the thing that the Brown Berets were fighting against is statistically the numbers were coming back from Vietnam, and a lot of Chicanos, or Mexican Americans, or they were becoming more of the ones that were dying over there.
Yes.
And it wasn't just the Brown Berets. It was different movements that were protesting against the war because it didn't make any sense for us to be.
Well, in what was called the Chicano moratorium. Yeah, so that was against the Vietnam War, and it was actually one of the biggest protests of minority group back then. And the numbers, that it was 22% of us dying over there, when we only represented 5% of the population. Of the population. But our casualty rate was 22% in that war. So we were getting killed, exterminated. Yeah. So people don't know that, there's bigger pictures, I guess. Sometimes we don't think about it. We might not put it together. Yeah. But, like the school right now, I think we need to watch that. The funding, I'm going to put that out there because they're listening right now, is if they attack our school right now, we need to remember they're attacking us directly because we're the majority in that school right now.
Yeah. We need to learn this history of what was happening back in the 1960s where you were not able to use the restroom or a counselor can let you know that you can go further and go to school for the same reason that we don't want to repeat again because it could easily happen again.
Or get reversed even. Mm-hmm. A lot of things right now you'll hear a lot and it's going to come up because the elections are coming up. Yeah. So it's going to heat up again, guys. Whatever issues we had recently, they're not over. And you hear a lot right now about voter repression. And, the brown community, we represent half the growth of this state, 2 million people, right? But we have no representation. Like we don't run any districts. And that's they've actually chopped us up to where like they'll split us up to where we can't. So they're killing our voting rights. And that's happened before. So that's why right now there's a lot of people out there fighting to stop that. The tax on our schooling systems, the tax on the voting.
So how does that work exactly? How they can split you and make your vote less worth? How does that happen?
They call it gerrymandering.
Gerrymandering.
Yes, and what it is they'll say they'll take a community like East Dallas, right? Where if you were to keep it together, we'd be 80%, 70% of the community of that district.
Of that district.
Yes, but what they'll do is they'll chop it to where and they'll put us to where it's a mostly white majority. And now we're only 20% to their 70%. And they'll take that piece.
So they divide that region into 3 and it's legal to do so? And how would they get away with dividing it into 3?
Man, they've been doing that, I don't know, maybe 50, 60 years or I'm not sure. It might be longer. I'm not completely sure about that. But they are able to do it. And it hurt us. It hurt us this year. And when they do that, they only get to do that for 10 years. So what we got is what we have. So now... And people are not going to vote. A lot of people are not going to want to vote because of this. Because they're going to be like, well, why should I vote? It's like me. I knew that where I went to vote, Trump was going to win anyways, right? But I just went because I wanted to show that, hey, there's still some of us here that, we're not supporting that. But I knew that wasn't going to count. So it's in a way your vote doesn't count. It's a silencing of your voice. But there was a lot of demonstrations, 2022 and all that. So we have power in our hands. Even if they try to silence our vote, we do have power.
Okay. So let's touch back on it. So the Brown Berets are not a terrorist organization. You're not a gang.
No.
How would you define it now presently, as far as what y'all represent and what y'all do nowadays? Is it because I heard militant too?
Yes.
Organization. I heard different things like that. So how would you define it now, or what is it like? If you was to put a definition present day for the Brown Berets, what would it be?
I think we're more of a social action group, but we're tough too. So in our minds, if we feel like we need to defend our neighborhoods, and Brown Berets have taken an oath to do that. But we work on change in other ways. We try to do the talk youth programs, feeding, try to go feed the homeless, and we try to work in other ways. But we're a social change group, I guess, is something that we could be called.
Can you have like a youth, like an oath of honor, or like a code of conduct, or a mission statement that you go by?
Yes, we have all that.
What, is it okay if you share with me or no?
Probably not. But it's just you taking an oath to defend your neighborhood, and right now the Brown Berets and the Chicanos, the indigenous identity is something that we're trying to reclaim, and we're trying to teach others to reclaim it. Our history that was robbed and stolen from us, or the languages and the art, the stories and stuff like that. So
it only makes sense that Mexicanos, Chicanos, Latinos all have some type of indigenous blood, right?
Yes.
You can do a DNA testing. You can find something in there. Because it only makes sense. You don't really have to be too educated and really logically think of the regions of like, oh yeah, it only makes sense. Yeah, we might have some Spaniard blood and different things, because they came and conquered, and the conquistadores.
Yes.
But you still find that blood that was here originally still running through our veins.
And that's something like I try to remind people.
Yeah.
Because, you're not an outsider on this land or any land on this continent. We belong here. Our bloods belong here for a long time. And I think that's something that I know when I started knowing that, it changed my world. The way I look at it, I don't feel like a stranger or an outsider or voiceless even. When I feel like I need to say something, I will, because I feel I have a right to. And before we weren't like that, we were taught to just be obedient, go to work. Y si te está tan mal, it's all right. Like just put your head down and keep going. And I think it's time to stop that.
Absolutely. You're right. And okay, so here's another thing that I wanted to touch up on, because I know that back in the 60s, there was a lot of depriving to try to even get the kids to go to college. Now there's a lot more going to college. But now there's another issue happening now, which is the student loans.
Yes.
And the lack of education, because it's taken away, I think it's diluting the education and the degrees. Because now a bachelor, I'm not taking away from people that want to go to school. Please go to school if you want to. If that's your calling, if you really like going to school, please educate yourself to the most. But my thing is that it's diluting and just giving degrees just to give degrees, right? And I don't like that.
That's something, man, you've touched on something that I think is something we got to watch for. So if we tell them that we want schools and college degrees, but we're not paying attention to the curriculum or what they're teaching, and we compare it, say you compare what they're teaching now to 40 years ago when we weren't a lot of us there, and we weren't a majority, or it was only a few. And what were they teaching them then, and what are they teaching us now?
Right.
Because they can give you a piece of paper, but what's the quality behind it? What's behind that? So I think those are attacks that it's like they keep moving the goalpost on you. Because why do we want education? We want education to be equal, right? To have, we could be as smart as anybody else and have the same opportunity as anybody else.
Right.
But what if they cheapen our education? All of a sudden, now we're not equal anymore. And that's the fight right there. So it can be moved. We have to watch that. The curriculum, there's teachers up there that have to watch for that. And it can happen. You know, it's even like right now, we got the right to vote, right? But we just talked about gerrymandering.
Yep.
So what did we gain?
So how do you counter gerrymandering as a regular voter that don't know really how it works, but you do want to vote? How do you counter that, or how can you fight against it?
I think being a strong minority voice, to be vocal, you know, to make yourself known in that area, you know, that there might be 70% that voted against whatever you voted for, but, you know, there's 30% of us voting, and that's 10,000 people. If I get 5,000 people, 10,000 people out there demonstrating, that's power.
And who do you demonstrate against? Your representative, your congressman, or who is
Yes, the ones directly involved in that. So like in Texas, it'd be the House,
Mm-hmm.
you know, where Abbott and all them. So they're the ones passing it. And, you know, look at the numbers. I mean, the numbers are there, you know, and what's scary right now is that I feel like they're not even hiding anymore. So the attacks on our communities are all in the open. Not only in the open, this is the part that I think is dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually like a calling card now. They fight to see who's the most extreme against us. And that's dangerous because they're dehumanizing us. You know, it's okay to treat a Mexican bad because, you know, he's just illegal. He's just, you know, he's a wetback. He's just a rapist or a drug dealer. So it makes it okay to hurt us. And we talk about Nazis a lot because that's what happened over there. First, they made it okay to hurt them, blamed them, and then they used them as a scapegoat. And I feel that that's something that's been happening to us. They blame us for losing jobs, that we take jobs, economy, and all that stuff, when in fact it's the opposite.
You know, they always do that, right? Like
Yes.
within the politics, they always blame somebody.
Yes.
If it's not the Irish, then it's the Chinese, then it's the who are Japanese, and then the natives.
Yes.
And so it always somebody to blame.
A scapegoat.
So the
yeah.
thing is, to me, is that I lost the thought now myself.
Yeah.
But the fact that they should be able to demonstrate, right? People
Yes.
are able to demonstrate
Yes.
because it's within the Constitution that you're able to go ahead and not necessarily protest, but demonstrate that you are against this gerrymandering and different things like that, right? So
Yes.
it's something that you are able to do as a person, right?
Yes.
So where do y'all put out anything as far as if y'all going to go do that or things like that people can be on the lookout, or just individually organized to go do that by themselves if they feel like their votes being suppressed?
I mean, yes. I mean, you can go out there by yourself, and sometimes it doesn't take much. You know, it could be a few people. I'm not sure how to answer that one.
That's all good. I mean, it's just the fact that at least we minimum touching up on the fact that how it works as far as the reason why you vote will be diluted.
Well, okay. All right. So I think for situations like that, we have to be smart.
Mm-hmm.
We have to know that there's politicians out there that don't care about us. They just want the position for the glory or the money or whatever need that's filling on them. Power, right? But that doesn't mean we can't use that, to be quite honest. And I think a lot of times, you know, people that want to be good are thought of as naive, and that shouldn't be the same. You know, we should be smart too and use that. So, okay, you want my vote? You need my vote, right? You need my vote to get in office. You have to do this for me. So I tell people it's a negotiation. And the more power you have, the more leverage you have on them, the better off we'll be. Because we need to stop begging and asking for stuff and demanding
when it's
and forcing them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because they're public service.
Yes. Put them in a corner.
Yeah.
Be like, well, what have you done about this? Or what about that? You broke your promise here, you know.
And we got you on tape.
Yes, yes. So hold them accountable. So I think that's important. But being smart, man, knowing who your opponent is, what drives them.
Even though it's within our within the Constitution the freedom of speech. I think politicians should be held at a higher standard.
Yes.
Not to lie to your
Yes.
people, because you constantly see them lying straight up to your face.
Yes.
Like we seen him with Clinton, straight to our faces,
Yes.
lied and said that he didn't do that with that woman. Now we know that it did
Yes.
happen. And I think, I don't know if there's an unwritten rule that presidents can lie to the public. Whether, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it benefits sometimes to lie to the American people, not to freak them out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think certain things they use and it's just not cool.
Yeah,
to
yeah.
do.
I mean, I think you got to go back to what their intentions are too. You know, what are they trying to? I always, you know, when I read a newspaper or anything I read, I like to find out who wrote it first, because I need to know why they wrote it. You know, if
Right.
it's a right thinking guy and he's writing about Mexicans, well, maybe he's got other motives to what he's writing. So a lot of times it's not what they're saying exactly, is when and how they're saying it,
Or
and for
who's
what
telling
purpose.
them.
Yes, and for
Because-
what purpose? And I think
Yeah.
like politicians is like you said, they need to be held at a higher level because people listen to them. And what are they trying to do with it? You know, like now, a lot of stuff they say is just to incite, shock people. Unfortunately, that gets the attention. It does. You know, you see it on your social, you know,
Yeah.
you could post some good stuff, you're going to get a like or two.
But don't get me
You
wrong.
know?
This social media, this algorithm, this
Yeah.
AI that's embedded within
Yeah.
the social medias, it's part of the cause of dividing people, right? Because, for example, my feed might not be the same feed as yours,
Well,
you know?
I've noticed that.
No, it does.
Yeah.
It's 100%, I guarantee you.
Yes.
There's a called The Social Dilemma on one of the, I think it's HBO Max, where it talks about that.
Yeah.
The original founders of Twitter, Facebook, they talk about that part, to where they created an AI that has been working and just getting smarter.
Yes.
To where I'm seeing certain things about, let's say, the last dude that was in the White House, and because I like his stuff, right? And that's
Yeah.
all I see. But
Yeah.
you don't ever get to see that
Yes.
stuff about him. You see the opposite
Yeah.
stuff. And that is literally what's happening, and we don't understand.
Well,
that
it's
that's happening.
and I've noticed that with my, you know, when I get on my feed, I'm like, notice it's the same group, and we become an echo chamber in a way. So you're kind of just bouncing the same thing back and forth, and we're not growing.
Yeah.
So for me, I pay attention because for me, I'm on the streets. I walk the streets. I work with the kids. You know, I'm out there, and if I don't see it with my eyes, then it doesn't really exist. So it could lie to you. I guess that's the main thing.
Yeah.
It fills a hole in you that makes you feel like you're helping out, but you're not helping out. Goes back to the voting, but it's not voting.
Yeah.
Going back to the school, but it's not school because the quality of it. So I see that there. Now I use it as a tool myself. I know that's happening, but I work outside of it on the streets.
And it works, right? Because there's if I saw a video that a young man actually saw one of your TikToks and went to see one of your speeches,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So it works.
It does work. See, yeah, it does. So it's a useful tool.
Yeah.
But I think it just got to make sure that it's not your only tool.
Right.
You know.
Okay. So on the part that you were touching up on, I think you mentioned regarding making us seem like we were rapists and different things, like because those are words that somebody else said that were in power, right?
Yes.
But I didn't. For me, I didn't take it so much as being offended of it, because I know I'm not that person, right?
Yes.
No matter how much he wants to paint me that way, I didn't feel that it was a personal attack from me, because I don't do that stuff.
Yes.
And my people that I know, my family, that don't do none of that stuff. But it does reflect a little bit on us, like Latinos, Chicanos, because a lot of the times, whether we want it or not, we're kind of sort of feel offended because it does touch up on us. Not that we're rapists or anything, but a lot of the times we do tend to discriminate on
Women.
Chicanos, Mexicans against Chicanos, or, you know, different things like that. You know what I mean? So I see what you're saying as far as like they making us seem less than a human, right?
Yeah.
Like if he's a criminal, then he deserves less than a person.
Yes.
But at the same time, we have to police our own selves and our own thoughts that we're not like that.
Yes.
No matter how much he cries out that that's who we are, we know deep inside we're not that.
Yes, and I think
know?
that's why it's important to go out to the communities and talk to to tell the kids and that, hey man, you're a smart kid, and to tell them these positive things, because you're right, we have to tell it to ourselves because we have to believe it.
Yeah.
But I think that's something that. But when they say that, I think they're feeding their base.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
they're saying it because they know they're going to get a reaction from, whoever, and we have a lot of white militias right now.
Yeah.
They're openly racist. KKKs around this area still. We're in Dallas, so you go out in the country, they're still out there.
Yeah.
So it feeds them what they want to hear. And it's good to be balanced and to know that that can happen to us as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to be careful who's telling us what.
Right.
Because they might be feeding us things that we want to hear. That's why when I say brown unity, I'm a big brown unity person. I'm Chicano, but my main thing is brown unity. And I try to remember that I'm not trying to fight anybody. I'm just trying to improve the conditions for all brown people, even the ones that voted for Trump.
Yeah. So what about the white people? I understand not every single one of them. There is white supremacists. There's things
Yes.
like that, but there's not all of them.
No,
like that,
obviously
right?
no.
So how would they feel whenever somebody hears something about brown? Like you just want to tell them that it's not that we're against you or trying to eliminate you from the face of the earth.
Yeah.
Is that the fact that we're behind and trying to catch up on the things that they haven't allowed us to. The people in power, or they were not able to go to school at the time that we wanted to go to school.
Yes, exactly.
We just want to get to that.
And I think that's a message. And sometimes you get mad and you start telling, angry words, and you forget that that's also a message you want to give out.
Yeah.
That you're not against white people or nothing like that. We're against white supremacy. And those are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been white people that have been fighting against white supremacy right alongside with us.
Right.
Because it's not only bad for us, obviously, it's bad for them too. For them to walk around with that type of hate towards a group they probably haven't met, because if they met us, we're hardworking people, man. Come to one of our parties. You're going to have a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. You'll enjoy it.
You'll enjoy it, yep.
Or any party, baptism.
Yeah, don't matter what
2
it
years.
is. Yeah, we're a group together.
You'll leave very happy.
Yep.
Okay. So touching back on that, the degree part, right? So they're diluting it. It's not the education. There's a whole lot more student loans and there's more debt, but eventually it's going to get paid. But the other thing that I saw is that entrepreneurs, Mexican entrepreneurs, I don't know if you're pushing that a lot.
Yeah.
But I think it's necessary for us not to work for the man or for anybody except for having your own thing that you own for yourself.
Yes.
Again, I'm not too much of the physical working part, but I understand the pride of it, and it helps you feed your family. But the thing of having your own company, your own thing that provides for your family, not having to depend on nobody, that's something that I feel like it needs to be pushed on more. Is that something that y'all are doing or that y'all thinking about doing? Because the numbers are showing the Latinos are,
especially in Dallas, the stores we open, it's quite a bit,
Mm-hmm.
And in our culture too, if you notice, in our neighborhoods, we have, Mexican stores, Hondureño, Salvador. We have stores for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we keep that and we shop there, we go to the pulgas. So we buy from ourselves a lot
already.
Yes. And that's not true for all the other groups, So there's a lot of there's groups that hardly buy from themselves.
Yeah.
So that's not true for us. I think we're winning.
Yeah.
I do think we're winning. I think we're on the upward progress. It's just being attacked. We need to watch it and keep the momentum going. Like you're saying, keep opening businesses, because it's part of the progress that we're supposed to be on anyways. We're supposed to be moving forward like that. We're not supposed to be where I went to prison and my kid goes to prison, his kid goes to prison. That's zero growth in 3 generations, 75 years or 100.
Yeah. Okay, let's go back on that and touch up a little bit more, because I don't know your upbringing, but you felt that was hurt, and then you needed to hurt other people, because they said hurt people, it only makes sense, right? So was it your upbringing like that, and then that's the reason why you grew up with anger, and there's
I saw violence when I was a kid, so domestic violence and poverty. I grew up in LA, so it was in the 80s. I did the homeless thing, so all these issues.
So you were homeless before?
Yes, as a kid, with my mom, we got kicked out and stuff like that. So my mom, she had us very young, worked very hard, but like I say, we didn't get the best benefits, best pay, so it was hard for her.
Right.
So we struggled a little bit. So all these issues are close to heart because I lived them.
Mm-hmm.
I know what poverty does and the hopelessness, and it does fill you with hate. I mean, you hate the world out there. A lot of these kids out there, some of our people in prison, they just want to burn this place down. They hate it. It's never given them anything good. They never felt hope. That's a big one, man. You got to feel like you can do it.
Yeah. So so that's where your passion as far as like encouraging and empower the kids and telling them what they can do. Because I feel the same way. Yes. Right? I think everything is possible.
Yes,
I don't take anything from anybody that could possibly do and they can show the fullest expression of a human being. Right. I feel that it's possible. So that's where it comes from as far as that, because you lived some of this.
Yes, that's what my caring part.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from there that I grew up there. We do food distributions.
Mm-hmm.
I stood in lines as a kid to get food, to pick up food at food distributions. The works. I had this is one of the stories, and I know it's not only me. A lot of our people did this. The first time I stole was groceries. I was like 8 or 9 with my uncle, went and stole groceries. And I'll tell you what I felt.
Mm-hmm.
Pride.
For stealing.
For providing.
You felt pride for providing, not for stealing.
I didn't see it. Yes. And that's what happens. A lot of people in this, in our community, they want to provide. They might not have someone show them how else to do it. They don't think it can happen. They've never seen anybody grind it out, work your 10 years at a job and move up and invest that time in that place because you're investing in yourself. Not too many of us get told that. So, but the Brown Beret part, that the uniform comes from that I was in a gang. And I feel that it's very unfair for me to have been so brave and put myself in so much danger to hurt my brother.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't put myself in the same danger to help him. So for me, it's just an equalizing thing, for me personally.
Let's touch up on, if you don't mind me, about that. So what led y'all to want to have to resort to stealing at the time when you were 8 years old with your tío? Was it like y'all haven't eaten in days? That's the way he showed you. He wasn't the type to go work, but y'all needed to eat, right? What happened? Do you remember?
I think maybe don't remember too. I was young.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I didn't see him in particular work too much, but all my uncles did.
Uh-huh.
So I have very good example of hardworking people.
Yeah.
But at that moment, we just didn't have food. We'd go. It happens out here.
Right.
People don't realize there's kids that go without eating a day or two sometimes, or their only food is
when they go to school.
Yeah.
When they go to school.
It's sad out there in some of these places. And, there's a lot of times we get argued against, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, well, what about the parents and all that? Nobody's trying to excuse parents for being bad parents. What we're trying to do is understand human nature.
Right.
If that parent never got raised right and he got stuck in a cycle, that parent might be doing the best he or she can. They just don't know any better. Yeah. So that's what education and awareness programs and all that stuff that needs to be happening, that the government they don't put much money into that stuff. It's usually grassroots and donations doing it.
Yeah, because people want to get a unicorn out of like shit.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yes. So you got to understand that there's people going through some stuff. Like you can't expect somebody that's gone through the worst thing ever. All they know is abuse. Yes. And they think that abusing their kids is love. Yes. Because that's the way they were shown. And then they pass it on to the next, and the parent, you know what I mean?
Or to be tough on you. No llores. No llores. Don't you cry. Don't you cry, because you're a man. And man, so we got a bunch of men out here walking around that they don't know how to show emotion, right? So
Dude,
this
the Walkout movie, I cried like 3 or 4 times because it touched so much in different scenes from the part where the dad was too firm, where he didn't want her to go any further, to where the time that she fought her inner being to define her dad,
Yes.
knowing that she was gonna disrespect him, to the time where he finally broke down and said, "Sabes que, you stood up against me, and you're not gonna stand up against them."
Yes.
And then she went and did her thing. That broke my heart. I like,
and you know
damn.
what? I think that's what these stories and these movements, that's what unites us. When you hear a story from some guy in Denver or Arizona and you see yourself.
Yeah.
And that's really what this is about, is to show people, hey, man, that kid over there, let's care about him. I know we made it out the hood and we're okay, but the conditions we had to survive are still there.
Yeah.
So let's care about that kid. You know, so I think that's that feeling, man, that you just said you felt. I felt it. I was watching some documentaries today. I felt that.
And it's okay to feel that way.
Yes.
Because we're parents.
Yes.
No llores porque no es much. It's not a thing. Like, just get it out of you. Like,
it's a human
healthier.
thing. Yes.
It's a healthier
yes,
thing to
it
get
is.
it out.
It is. And if you feel better after, because it's a natural thing. So that's things that we're fighting. You know, to go back on one thing, I just popped in my head. I got to get it out.
Absolutely.
So you know that commercial with the Snickers guy, right?
Yeah.
You're hangry, right?
Yeah, you're hangry.
All right, and it's a true thing, right? When you're hungry, you become meaner, more irritable, right?
You're not yourself.
All right, so now picture a whole group of people, brown people, that are hungry emotionally, physically, spiritually.
Yeah.
And then you wonder why we don't act in our best behavior. We're starving out here.
Like
we're starving for hope and all that stuff, you know. So we're not in the best behavior because we're hangry.
I love that. Now I love that way that you put it, because it's true. Because a lot of people have been eating well, right? They don't know that starvation part, you know.
Yes.
They don't know what that is. They always had. They had the two parents.
Yes.
They had the good education. They had the encouragement. They had the schooling, and they never missed anything. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And a lot of us. I don't speak personally. I have both of my parents that love me very much. Like every parent, they don't have a book, but they only did what they could based on what they knew, right, to make me. And it's my part to extend it and make it even better. Yeah. And the same thing for my siblings and that what they're doing. But you're right. When you haven't had this, when you haven't had a drink of water or something to eat, all you think about is satisfying those before you're able to further. So when we have, like, I think in certain places, that's what they use as a tactic, right? They keep people hungry.
Yes.
So they can further expand themselves.
Yes.
So we've been here, but it's time.
It's time to move on.
So
exactly.
So what are the Brown Berets doing as far as to touching up not only on the youth, but to touch back on their parents? Because I know by default, the kids are going to be they're going to get in better knowledge. They're going to be encouraged to be better people and be better humans. But is there anything programs to try to touch up the parents? Because I know they're hurting too. You know?
Well, actually, yes. I mean, and we need to help them because they're the power in the house. You know, if we can help them, then the kids will be better.
Right.
So right now we work with this program. It's called the Dallas Cred, and it's from the city of Dallas. So they're, they chosen some areas, and they got one area was Chicanos and a lot of Salvadoreños and stuff like that. So they got programs like that to. There's a lot of domestic violence there, so programs to try to have awareness campaigns on that, to try to talk to the parents. And a lot of times, is people are lost out there. They just need some counseling to be talked to,
There's a lot of healing that needs to be done.
Exactly. We're hurt. Yes.
Yeah.
And, it's really what it is. What brought me to this microphone right now was healing. I'll try to tell people that all the time. I'm not the good example, guys. I'm the bad example that survived it. But, I cannot give you good examples because I did it just because I didn't do it. And that's what I bring to the table. But we have professionals, so it's an organization, different people, different backgrounds and stuff. But we've lived in the same neighborhoods, different choices maybe, so... I think sometimes that's what divides us, or that people choose to highlight to divide us. But we are the same people, we eat the same type of food, man. We have the same histories, and the history is our history. My history is your history. It's both our history. Yeah.
I think there's still a lot of healing and fixing to do within the parents, and it's not their fault either, but you have to become aware after a while.
Yes.
Hopefully you hear something like this or like go look for something, right? Because there's always a calling in the back of your mind that certain things don't feel right normal.
Yes.
The way you act towards your kid for whatever reason, right? So it takes a little bit of reflection. And why am I acting like this towards my kid? Or am I even ready to have a kid at this time whenever I haven't really fulfilled something in me that says that I'm good to go to bring somebody into the world too? And it sounds like easier to say.
But I think that word reflecting is a good one.
Yeah.
Because I think you got to heal yourself. It's very important. I've had people that, they'll message or call me like, man, Tony, I want to be a Brown Beret. I like everything you do, man. I support you, but I'm not there yet. And what they mean is that they have a lot of stuff internally that they have to still work out.
Right.
And to do any type of activist work, it takes a toll.
Yeah.
Because you still have to maintain your regular life, but you have to pay attention to this stuff, and it could be hard to listen to, hard to deal with. You want to quit sometimes. So if you're not 100% ready, and you know your own demons and all that stuff, and you overcame them, you're going to have a hard time, because.
So for anybody that's looking at the video and seeing your patch on it for Che.
Yes.
A lot of the time, sometimes the Brown Berets are somewhat want to be tied to communists.
Yes.
So what do you say to that, or what is?
And we do have Brown Berets that are communists, so it happens. I try to remind people that we don't promote any one ideology over any other, or religion over any other. It's very simple for us. We just want to improve the conditions of our people. Now, sometimes we think this way will help us, but we need to remember that we're here to teach, that not to tell people. And I'll bring a good example because of your shirt, right? Latin, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people out there that don't like that word, right?
Absolutely.
And I like to try to explain to people why, right? It's very simple. They just feel like it doesn't promote your indigenous culture, identity. So it feels like an erasure.
Oh yeah, I've seen comments.
Yeah,
before.
so that's what they feel about it. But that doesn't mean that's how you look at it. Like I don't look at it like that either. I just think there's different levels of different perspectives and stuff. And a Chicano, we're more homegrown right here, like Southwest, the Mexico, and a lot of Mexican American history, the way we got treated by this government. So we're focused here, and to me, a Latino is just someone with they look at the world more wider.
Let me tell you what it means to me as far as what I feel. I identify myself as a human being first of all. The way that I end the show is I say something about we're just like you. We're just a spice in this melting pot that it is the world. But it's a term that people can relate.
Yeah.
Now I see the pride behind other terms that people use, like Chicano and things that feels more to their heart. But this is a term that I feel that people the people in the global scale can relate to.
Absolutely.
Or can know what it is, right?
Absolutely.
But I always try to make it to where we're just like you. Like, this is what we're done. We contribute corn.
Yeah.
We contribute tomatoes, potatoes. We probably saved Europe from famine many years ago.
Yes.
Things like that.
Yeah.
This is the factor that we have contributed, not to mention the music, not to mention lawyers and different things like that we are impacting. So this is the global Latin factor that we have contributed, which includes Chicanos.
Yes.
Which includes Chicanx, Latinx, and all that.
And see, that's kind of what that's how I think. And I try to use terms too, like when I say brown unity, I try to be very general terms because I know there's differences and different ideas and, with the Hispanic or the Latino. Some people don't like Chicano either, so there's issues there.
Yeah.
But I just try to remind people that we are not enemies to each other.
Yeah.
And we should not allow those differences to try to divide us.
Or people exploit those.
That's the main one.
Us.
That's the main thing.
Yeah.
That people exploit them to divide us.
Yeah.
And I think that's the main one to try to remember. That, to teach. be like, okay, we just want to say because it's, for the Latin, it's because of the language thing, the language. So it's just, we just want to be more proud of being Chicano. Like, okay, now, if I told you that without attacking you, you might listen to me a little bit more.
Yeah.
But it's when we start attacking each other. I mean, we're human.
Yeah, because
I know
once
when
you get attacking, you're blocked. You're in defense mode.
I know, that's how I say. I put a wall up. When I'm hearing you getting yelled at, my wall goes up. And even if you're right, I'm going to say you're wrong because I don't want you to be right.
Right. Absolutely.
And so leaders have to know that, to not attack your own. That's why I don't attack Trumpers, because I feel I could educate some of them and they might change their views. And, so if I attack them, it's like me closing a door on a group of my people. Now, how can I say I'm for my people when I'm closing doors on some groups of my people?
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
Yeah.
So the only way to love my people is to love them all. Just to understand that some are lost, are confused, maybe not educated in certain ways.
Yeah. Maybe they have life experiences that brought them to this a bit. Maybe they had a bad experience with a Latino.
Exactly.
And all of a sudden, all of them are just like
or
that.
just a life experience. They could come from a very patriotic family and it's just ingrained in them. So it wouldn't be fair for me to just attack them and to not value why they say that. I think people are valuable. All humans, we want equality, for there is no fighting.
Yeah, and we need to clean up Hollywood as far as the Latino portray, the Chicano and all those come from the movies, right?
Yes,
things like that, because we're not all that.
Yes, we're not all, and exactly, man.
And there's a lot of directors, Mexicanos. They're winning like Academy Awards and different things like that for movies they're making, but there's more of what are we doing? Like the way our culture does things. You know what I mean? I think even the Brown Berets can have a movie, but I don't know if there is a movie. I don't think there was a movie that I found. But it is part of the history that needs to be told. And there's a lot of directors that need to portray this and put it in the mainstream to show. Because I think the reason why I call it the same thing is because and it was for education purposes for myself, right? Because I don't know a lot about this. I would never have known more about this, and if I didn't go in there, start looking it up just to interview you, I would not never known anything about anything if I didn't go into it. So a lot of the times, ignorance that we don't know is the unknown is dangerous to us, right? We don't know it, right? Until we start exploring it. So that's the other reason why, first of all, is the mainstream term Latino or Latin, but at the same time, you can go in there and see different stories or different things that I talk about and be like, oh.
Yeah. Well, and even the work you're doing is exactly like what I'm doing. You're trying to promote the people that are doing good out here, that are trying, the good stories, that we should be like, you got people out here that own businesses or, recording. So they're out there chasing dreams and goals, and that's what we want for our people.
Yeah. And I appreciate you sharing the part that you were to prison, because again, this is not like a podcast or a video trying to portray that we're all saints. Like even saints though had the worst history from murders and all kinds of stuff and made it to sainthood. To show that we're just humans. We are just like everybody else that can make mistakes, and we can bounce back and just progress to try to help everybody else or
and you could retrain yourself. I feel like I'm retrained, like I really do, when I see a cholo, I don't, where you from or scared, and that was my reaction before, worried, like, is he gonna try something?
Where you from, boo?
Yeah.
From the movies. My bad.
So I retrained myself to not look at him as my brother, so we can do that. And history is so important. Just you watching the history you have has added to your life. The pride you can feel, the connection you can feel, the things that have now, we could appreciate now, didn't just come to us. We have people to appreciate that fought for it. Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta, Sal Castro, all of them, they put in so much work that we are benefiting from. We're connected. And that same connection, when I say that, Chicanos, we're trying to go back to, trying to reconnect to our indigenous, is to extend that. So if you feel connected going back to the 60s, Imagine connecting yourself back to the Aztecs.
Yeah, I've been to the pyramids. I
You
walked
know,
through them.
exactly. I tell people, I always tell the kids when I get to talk to them, like, all right, you like Egyptians, right? Like, yeah, who doesn't know Egyptians, right? The pharaohs, like, we have pyramids, right? And they're actually better. Yeah, they're more precise. We have history. I mean, we have way more history that we have not been told. And I know that once we start telling that to the kids, man, it's going to open their eyes. It does. It makes you, I don't know, it changes you.
I felt a lot of empathy watching that movie for the same reason that I can see it both ways, right? I can see how frustrating the Chicano were trying to find an identity, but at the same time dealing with the same thing as a Mexicano that I was dealing with as a young guy trying to be like trying to be better myself for my parents because I seen their sacrifice at the same time, but maybe they didn't understand what I was going, because I was in the army. I'm a veteran, and I came here illegally, and I'll tell the story later on, but it made me connect in a certain way, even though I'm now born in the U.S., but I see and empathize, like, damn, there was a lot of pain and a lot of hurt and a lot of just want to be, like you said, so hungry, and they just want like to be fed a little bit more and stop being suppressed and be able to flourish as a person, as a human being, the way you're supposed to, but you're not being allowed to because other people were just pushing against that, Yes. So I felt the whole time I was watching that movie, I was just feeling a certain way for the same reason. And you're right, we go back many years ago as far as like you eat a corn tortilla right now and you go back and touch the first 10,000 years or more that your ancestors made that, and it's still now to this day here. Yes, maybe different ingredients, maybe not as nutritional, but it's the same thing. Right? Yes, where anytime you eat a tortilla, you know you're connecting with your ancestors from 10,000 years more when they created that.
And you know what? Like you said earlier, the gifts we gave to the world, to Europe, all this, we gave a lot.
Tomatoes, pizza would not be real without tomatoes, whether you want it or not. You know what I mean? It came from the Americas.
Yeah. So, and you know what? That doesn't get looked at like that. It looks more Italian than anything. But it started over here. Yep. So it's little stuff like that is not little, because all those little pieces taken away from our picture, what are we left with? That's why we can't see our complete picture, because they've taken so much out of it.
And that's why I call it the global Latin factor, el factor, the one that we've done. You know, that includes everything. And it's like I don't understand that the corn travels all the way to the other side of the world, but it began from a little area in Mexico that used to be Texas and California and New Mexico and all that. Yes. But it became this little area is where it came from. And then it expanded. Tomatoes and all the other stuff, chiles, peppers, all the way to Asia and all the other stuff. But it came from here, from these little areas.
You know what? Yeah. One thing I like to take away all the time is that no matter what happened to us, right? Good, bad, mostly bad, we survived. Yeah. As a people, we're not only surviving, we're flourishing. Yeah. That's a testament to our strength. How strong of people we are. I always, when I go into the hoods, and I'm going into the neighborhoods, the bad ones, right? And I tell them, I go, you know how strong you are, man? You're tempered steel. You've been tested. You've been put in that fire, man. You're still here right now. You're making it. You're a soldier.
There's a reason why the Mexicanos, Latinos are the best boxers. And within that movie, they say, why do you think that a lot of the fighters don't want to fight Latinos? Because we don't know when to quit.
Yeah, we keep going.
We don't know where to quit. We're going to keep going.
I go to work and I tell them, man, you better tell me. Yo soy como burro. I just keep going until I'm done. Yeah, like.
Okay, so we're going to end it here shortly because we're almost running out of time. But real quickly, what is for the future for the Brown Berets? I think you touched up a little bit, but what more is it that the Brown Berets are working for the future as far as, their vision or ideas that they want to implement or things like that?
Right now, what we're trying to do is to bring more of the culture into the city. So Mexica dancers. So we're trying to promote a lot more indigenous and just our history in general. So that's one thing we're doing. And we're also trying to see if we get a park named La Raza Park or something like that, or after one of our leaders. So that's two of the things that we're trying to do right now. And in Dallas, we're trying to help with the violence, to try to bring some of that down in the shootings and all that. So
Yeah, it doesn't help when they make easy the law. I'm all for the Second Amendment, right? But I'm all for the Second Amendment for you to educate yourself on how to properly use a weapon.
Yes.
Being from the military.
Yes.
Like you have to be able to know how to take a course, a long extended course, on how to properly use a gun, so you can now know the responsibilities for owning a gun.
Yeah, the mental responsibilities. The way you got to think. You can't think of people as your enemies and walk around with a gun. That's an irresponsible person holding one.
That and the fact that if you don't really process the thought that if you have a gun, there's a possibility that if you're going to shoot somebody, and then the things that you're going to have to put yourself through knowing that you took somebody's life. I don't know what it's like, and I don't want to know.
Yes, that's a big one, though. We have to live with these consequences, and the choices we make out there, it's stuff we have to pay for later.
Yeah. And okay, so they're gonna work on that. What else are they gonna work on as far as right now?
That's pretty much.
And this is just Dallas area, or just you're just speaking for this area?
This is for the Dallas area, but on a national thing, we're really watching this white nationalism. The white nationalism, it is on the rise. The white militias are out there, so I know that we're all keeping a close eye on that, and just to make sure that we're safe and that they don't attack our communities.
Okay. So any last minute shout outs you have?
No, just everybody listening. Thank you. I hope everybody gets something out of it. And thank you for having me here and spreading the message. Chicano power. Brown is beautiful. We're strong, powerful people, and we need to tell that to ourselves and anybody that wants to listen.
Absolutely. So, why Little Man? My bad. I didn't mean to ask
earlier. No, that's all right. I've kept that name. I got it when I was 12. It was my gang name, and it keeps me humble, and it's a way for me to remember where I came from, my experiences, and to bring it to the table, to everything that I saw there, that I felt, and what I learned, to bring it to these kids so they don't have to go there, know.
All right, Tony. So you have an amazing story, right? From being homeless to being a gang member to, committing crimes against your own people to realizing that just wasn't the way. And then being in prison and then coming out and seeing it different, like it's an amazing story, right? So we are connected globally still. So to me, if you don't mind me, Tony, you are a global Latin factor.
Thank you. And it's an honor to be one.
So one last question before I let you go. If somebody was to Google you or search you in some kind of search engine years from now, what do you want them to expect you to find from you or from the Brown Berets or together?
I want them to find a contribution that the Brown Berets did at this time for our community, so that the future generations could stand on that the way I stand on the sacrifices of those Brown Berets in the 60s and 70s. They were brave kids, man. And we owe them so much. And I like to be brave like that for our future.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much for being here. This was another episode of the Global Latin Factor podcast. Remember, we are just like you. We are the spice in this melting pot that it is the world. Until next time.